Recruiters stopped calling, 3 months of calls, then nothing. Not immediately. It thinned first, and that's the moment. Not when they stop, when they thin. By the time they stop, it's already 3 months gone. The timing looked right. That's not the point. You've watched this happen to someone else. I'm going to show you where this closes. Not when you notice it. Not when you hand in your notice. Earlier than that. You knew the organisation wasn't right for you anymore. You just didn't know what acting on it would cost. And I've been inside these decisions. I know what they cost, including the ones I got wrong. The resignation letter was the most confident thing he'd written in years. So why was he earning less 6 months later? He'd walked into the last room knowing exactly what he was worth, and that certainty had taken 15 years to build. Senior project manager, financial services, a track record that preceded him into rooms. He left at the peak of his internal value, which felt like the right moment. He had savings, a plan, and people who told him he was brilliant. The plan made sense, he didn't check again. The people who told him he was brilliant, they were colleagues. They couldn't hire him. They weren't buyers. They were witnesses. The support was real, it just didn't convert. And 6 months later, he was taking whatever paid. A year later, he was starting conversations he should have had years before. He'd built a career. He hadn't built a name. And by the time he introduced himself, he was introducing himself as someone who used to. It felt like the right call at the time. The institution knew his name. The market knew his employers. Most people think the exit is the decision. It isn't. By the time you leave, it's already been made. And this isn't an exit problem. This is a leverage problem. And it started long before the resignation. You can plan an exit perfectly. That doesn't change the pricing. She was still getting promoted, so why was nobody outside the building returning her calls? The last review had been clean, glowing even. Nothing in it suggested she was going anywhere. Head of operations, major infrastructure firm. 8 years in, she was the person they called when something needed fixing. Each promotion read as value being recognised, more responsibility, better title, more money. From the inside, it looked like progress. The reviews confirmed it. Nobody mentioned the window. From outside the building, she was the person the organisation couldn't do without, which meant the organisation had every reason to keep her where she was. She was indispensable, and that's a different word for stuck. Every promotion was real, but so was the narrowing. She couldn't see it from the inside. She stayed. She stayed until what the organisation needed and where she was heading finally split. The moment it changed wasn't dramatic, and that's why she missed it. By then, the people she should have been building relationships with had already moved on. They'd chosen their trusted contacts. She was arriving late to conversations that were essentially finished. The promotions weren't a trap, but she treated momentum as a reason to stay, and staying as strategy. Her skills were real. They just didn't travel. And that's not where it locks. 3 exits, no drama, no scramble. What did they know that the others didn't? In each case, the preparation was almost invisible from the outside. Speaking engagements, advisory conversations, work that lived outside the institutions. Relationships built when there was nothing to sell. And that last detail mattered. Nothing to sell. None of it looked like strategy at the time. None of them left into a void. They left into a context that already existed. The market already had an opinion about them before they asked the market for anything. The first month always looks like freedom. The real problem arrives in month 3. Not a shortage of work, a shortage of conversations that are ready to become work. Because those conversations should have started 6 months earlier. An exit strategy isn't a strategy, it's a hope. They didn't have hope, they had something already built. These 3 didn't have strategies, they had positions. And none of them were trying to leave, they were trying to build. The leaving was simply the side effect. The exit followed, it didn't lead. And here's the specific difference. You send a message to someone who should know you. They reply within an hour because they've been meaning to reach out. That's portable leverage. The other version, you send the same message, they reply eventually, professionally, with no urgency. Same person, different preparation. The exit wasn't clean because they planned it. It was clean because they'd been building before they needed to. The institution prices you. The market prices your work. Now there's a gap between leaving and landing. Most people discover how wide it is after they jump. You've been pricing yourself in a currency the market doesn't accept. Inside the institution, the currency is real. Title, seniority, hierarchy. It buys things. It opens rooms. But outside, it converts at 0. You say the name, the room doesn't change. Not because your work was wrong, because the exchange rate only worked inside the building. The market doesn't know you left. It never needed to know. It was never paying in that currency. The institution priced you. The market prices your work, and those are not the same thing. If you can only describe your value in terms of where you've worked, that's not a market position, that's a reference. If nobody outside your current organisation could explain what you do and why it matters without prompting, you don't have a market, you have colleagues. If you left tomorrow and had 6 months to find work, would that be a crisis or an inconvenience? The answer tells you where you are. Before you hand in your notice, one question. Can you name 3 people outside your current organisation who would take your call, understand your value immediately, and know someone who could use it? Not former colleagues, not friends, buyers, or people close to buyers. If you can't name 3, you haven't built enough outside to leave yet. And that's not a threat, that's the test. If you're currently planning an exit, I'd slow you down before I sped you up. Not because leaving is wrong, because leaving before you've built a name outside the institution is just moving the problem. Judo teaches that force applied without preparation creates resistance. Applied when balance is already shifting, when the conditions are right, it requires almost nothing, and the exit is the same. The professional who leaves with leverage doesn't push against the market. The market is already moving towards them. The ones who struggle applied force without preparation. They left at full strength and into nothing. You didn't lose leverage when you left. You lost it around year 3, and here's why. Year 1, the gap between your internal and external value is small, addressable, but most people address nothing. Year 3, the gap is widening. Your reputation inside the organisation grows. Your reputation outside isn't keeping pace, and this is the moment. Almost nobody acts on it. Year 5, the market knows your employer's name, not yours. Stop. Ask yourself, when did you last speak to someone outside the building who could have hired you? Not interviewed you, actually hired you. Year 7, the market has moved on. New voices have entered the space you should have occupied. They are already trusted. And year 10, you're an expert in a context that no longer exists outside the building. The organisation was doing what it was designed to do. You just weren't in the design. The exit is planned from the inside. Most people realise that from the outside.